Okay, fine. If Anat doesn't want to share, we'll just move on. Later on, if you change your mind, just let us know, okay? Okay, so some things that we need to in fact, I've created a checklist to evaluate your personal recount essay. Okay, definitely you'll be marked on content and language. So we will be looking at the different aspects of content as well as language, and you will then know what your teacher is looking at when they're marking your personal recount essay. Okay, so tone and register actually falls under content. Yeah, so it's a total of 30 marks.
Yeah, I think my teacher would have mentioned.
Yeah, so 15 is actually for content and 15 is for language. Okay, so today we'll just be a little bit more technical about it. We will look at your marking rubrics, which is the one that they will use when they mark your O-level essays. Okay, so here it is. Let me see, where's my syllabus? This one. Okay, so 30 marks is 350 to 500 words for O-levels. On one of the 4 topics, definitely there will be one that is personal recount. And if you feel comfortable enough to write, then you can choose the topic. Otherwise, you can actually choose other genre. Okay, so then we'll move on to this part here. I think the rubrics is below. Yeah, the band descriptors. Okay, this is the band descriptor for situational writing. Okay, same thing, a point 30, 10 marks for content, 20 marks for language. Okay, so we'll look at SIT writing next time round. Okay, we'll just look at your continuous writing first. So in terms of content, oh no, wait, sorry, it's 10 marks for content, 20 marks for language. So 10 marks for content, basically all aspects of the task are fully addressed and developed in detail. Okay, so all aspects of the task. So for example, if let's say your question is how do you spend your weekends? Okay, which was what we were talking about just now. So you must make sure you address all the aspects of the task, of the question itself. So spend weekends, right? So basically you have to unpack the topic and identify keywords so that you will make sure that you address all the different parts of it. Okay, then for language wise, language, they always look at different aspects. You have your vocab, grammar, okay, over here. Okay, coherent and cohesive presentation of ideas across the whole of the response. So basically, this is talking about your organization of ideas. How do you organize your ideas? Basically, what is the structure? So actually, this time around, they put structure because this is a new syllabus, 2023 syllabus. This year, they just changed the English syllabus. So they've allocated 20 marks for language. And under language, they actually, organization of ideas falls under language as well. Okay, so you need to make sure the way you arrange it, your structure, basically your structure is like the fishbone, right? Which I've mentioned before, your intro, body, and conclusion, right? Intro should have your thesis statement, body should have your topic sentences for each paragraph so that it's very coherent. So if you want to achieve a high band, this is what it should be aiming for. Yeah. Then of course you have your vocabulary. Vocabulary is another aspect. You need to use a lot of ambitious vocabulary, but it has to be effectively used and not just use it for the sake of using. Okay, and then grammar structures. Basically, we're talking about whether or not you're using the correct grammatical forms, right? The correct word forms. Okay, so this one is basically word forms. Okay, complex vocabulary, grammar. We look at punctuation, spelling as well. Yeah. Another thing that they didn't really specify here is your sentence variety. You do need to have a variety of sentences. Like instead of using all simple sentences, you should have a combination of like simple, complex, and compound sentences. So it's not so dull. Okay, so to achieve this, a point 20, you want to get 17, 18, 19, 20. It's really, you have to make sure you cover all aspects. All 3 bulleted points must be achieved. As long as one fall under, okay, from what I remember, because I went for the briefing before, like the teacher's training for the rubrics, as long as one of the components fall under the high band, that means you will never get band 5. You will then drop to band 4. So let's say, for example, the first 2 points you've achieved, but the last one you didn't. So you will fall under band 4, but you probably are a high band 4. So you probably get 16 upon 20 or 15 upon 20. So all the bulleted points must be achieved for you to fall under that. Okay. Then what about if, let's say, you get 1 in band 5, 1 in band 4, and 1 in band 3? Then they will take the one in the middle. Okay. Yeah. So for example, I feel like, for example, Chloe is a high band, high ability student. Okay. And then another teacher, Sheena, is in another class, and her teacher feels like, oh, Sheena is a high ability student. So both of us gave quite high scores to these 2 students. So for example, Sheena has obtained 25 upon 30. Then Chloe has got 36 upon 30, for example. Okay. So what happens is that even during O levels, even during your own school's WA assessments, right? Your teachers will do moderation. So what I'll do is that my class, I will pick those whom I think are high band students, okay, higher ability students. And then the other teacher will also pick some from her class, and then we'll compare. We can't, it's not possible for us to pick all the students in the class. Then you have to go through the hassle of looking through each and every paper again. So we'll just pick 3 high ability, 3 medium ability, and 3 low ability students. So we'll compare. So if I gave Chloe 26 marks, and then she gave Sheena 25, so we'll compare both essays, and then we'll see of the same topic. Yeah, it has to be of the same topic. And then we'll see how come you give her 25 marks. What are your reasons, right? So these are the number of mistakes she's made for grammar, for example. Okay, so then we have to justify. So that's how we come to a conclusion whether or not this student deserves that score. So that's what we mean by moderation for essay. Okay. Like I said, it's not possible for us to, for me to, usually every time end of the year exam, if let's say I've been assigned to mark essays, generally I will have to mark almost 150 scripts. Okay, because across the whole cohort, right? Let's say for most Sec 1 level express students, we have about 5 classes. Each class has about 30 over students. So I'll be marking like 150 scripts, because other English teachers, they will be in charge of marking like Sec 2 situation writing or Sec 2 continuous writing. So when it comes to end of year, each of us have 1 section to mark. Okay, but a lot of times it will be split amongst 2 teachers because we still have to do moderation. Yeah, so maybe 75 scripts each. Then after that, we'll exchange and check. Okay, so that's basically how they mark your essays. So now that you know what is the backend like, then you will be more aware. Generally, teachers want to pass you and want you to do well. Okay, I don't think any teachers have the intention to penalize you. Okay, so always try to achieve all these bullet points. We should not be looking at here. I think this definitely are not an options. So you can just look at band 3, 4, or 5. Actually, in fact, we should be aiming for band 4 and 5. Okay, band 3 is a little bit 12 upon 20. I mean, high band 3 is still okay. Okay, we should not be aiming for a fail, right? 10 and below is a fail already. So we should be aiming for band 4 at least. Okay, band 4 means you have to be able to achieve all these pointers here. Coherent presentation of ideas, vocab, and everything is sufficient to convey shades of meaning. Okay, so that's that. Now, going back here, we will look at the different aspects specific to personal recount, because personal recount has its own requirements. Okay, personal recount essay has its own requirements. So we'll look at content first, right? So how do we check the content? How did the writer start? Some questions to think about, yeah? How do you start, right? In terms of intro, okay? Do you use some interesting ideas to hook the readers in, right? Was it engaging? So your teachers will be thinking of all these questions when they're marking your essay. When they look at the introductory paragraph, how do you start the essay? Was it engaging? What words echo the topic? So basically this one will be the thesis statement. The thesis statement will echo the topic and it will give your reader an idea of what to expect, okay? Was the content established? So if you have achieved all these, then you should be quite good to go for intro. Okay, now in terms of content, we also want to see whether you have done your planning. How do we know if you have done your planning? Basically, the ideas flow smoothly, right? There is a smooth transition. It's not haphazard. So you must show that you have some evidence of planning. And most of the time, your teachers will be able to tell whether or not you've think through it before you write, okay? Now, next one will be the narrative development. Basically, this one is referring to the body paragraphs. Right? The body paragraphs, the writer includes story elements like your rising action, right? Climax, complication, and falling action. Okay, what plot element is weaved? Is it believable? Because it's supposed to be a personal recount. It's not like a science fiction kind of thing. Okay, so it has to be believable, right? Something that is more relevant. I think the rule of thumb is write something relevant to you because the markers are in UK and they are actually very interested to know your life in Singapore as a teenager, because they are probably curious about it. They've not experienced life in Singapore as a teenager, right? I suppose. So it's always good to be original. Okay, don't try anything funny and try to behave, and the way you write is like you are behaving like an they call it the Caucasian, right? The Angmohs, right? Some people like to sound like an Angmoh and have the slang. Okay, so I think it's good to just be original, and they will be very happy to read your stories. Yeah, the Singapore stories. Okay. Now, next, in terms of content, do you give sufficient details to describe emotions, the characters, and the context? Okay, even though it's a personal recount, I think it's good to have sufficient details in terms of like creating a vivid imagery. Okay, so was it effective? Dialogue. Do you use dialogues? It's not wrong to use dialogues, but then again, it's a personal recount. You do need to make sure you do not use an excessive amount of dialogues because it might not be effective after all. After all, if you write too many dialogues, it seems like a speech already. Okay. Then conclusion, do you conclude? Lastly, focus. Was the writer focused on the topic itself? Did he or she write out of topic? Okay, so that is the main part for content. Now we're going to move on to language. These are things that your teachers will look out for in terms of language. Tenses, okay? Tenses, I think that one is quite self-explanatory. I will not touch on that. Now, sentence variety. So like I said, there must be a variations of simple, compound, complex sentences. Okay? Did the writer make an effort to vary, or is it everything is so simple? Right? Word choice is another thing. Word choice, do you use descriptive words? Does the writer write emotively? It's a personal recount, so you do need to include emotions as well. So it has to be emotively. Okay? Your style. Does the writer use transitional words to connect sentences? So basically, you've learned synthesis and transformation in primary 6, right? I think you've just moved on from primary 6. So a lot of transitional words that you've learned when you're doing synthesis and transformation. So you can apply them to your writing as well. Okay, so do you make it more cohesive? right? By using transitional words. And